Jr. Welcome to Limelight Conversations. I'm your host, Troy D. Williams, and I have a very special guest in the studio with me today. I am here with super middleweight champion, boxer, Willie El Mongoose Monroe Jr. What's going on, Willie?
How you doing, man?
Thank you for joining us here at Limelight Conversations.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on. Yeah, man, so let's talk about your career a little bit. Tell me about growing up in Rochester, New York.
It was humble. You know, a lot of people like to use the term, we grew up poor, I like to say we grew up humble. I grew up in the 19th Ward, southwest side of Rochester. We were raised by my grandparents. So we were raised real humbly, we were raised with respect. In church, every Sunday, that type of thing. My grandparents are both from the South, so in church every Sunday, in the gym, Monday through Friday, school was important,
So how did you get into boxing? Like, what was the motivation behind that?
It's more of a family tradition. I grew up watching my dad fight on TV and heard a lot of stories about my great uncle, Willie the Worm, who beat Marvin Hagler. So you hear all these stories about your uncles and, everybody in the family fights, even the girls. And then you see your dad on TV. And, when my dad would come home, he was like a star. Everybody wanted pictures with him and autographs and stuff. So, it just, I would see my dad on TV and see how people react and say, I want that. You know what I mean? Whatever going on right here, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to have.
And what age did you start?
My grandfather started me boxing around the age of 6.
So how did you get the nickname El Mongoose? Where'd that come from?
That came from a good friend of mine. His name is Sammy Torres. We were watching one of my videos, and I was in a primarily Hispanic gym, and I have, on my grandfather's side, my background, his culture is Afro-Cuban, so we were in a primarily Hispanic gym, and they started calling me El Gato, because my hand speed and reflexes were like a cat. And there was another fighter from New York, his name was El Gato, and El Gato just didn't sound smooth enough to me. And then a good friend of mine named Sammy Torres was like, man, you fight more like a mongoose, you gotta watch a mongoose, they hunt cobras. And then it dawned on me, like Ricky Tikki Tavi, a cartoon I used to watch. And I went and watched a video of a mongoose taking a snake out, and I was just like, that's me all day.
Okay, so you started at 6, and then when did you go into the amateurs?
Well, started as an amateur at 6 and won my first amateur fight at 7 years old. My first 2 amateur fights I lost. And then I won the silver gloves, what they call the silver gloves. So you don't have the golden gloves. Below that is the silver gloves for kids on up to the age of 15. It's from 7 on up to 15. I had to get the age right, the age brackets right. But by the time I was 7, I was old enough to fight in the silver gloves. So I fought in that tournament and won. And ironically enough, I have that medal on my shelf right now with the picture of me and my grandfather that we took a couple days before Christmas with me. And I won that medal because that tournament is always fought the first weekend of December. So on Christmas, I was happy. I had my first win. It was the silver gloves, and I had put the losses behind me. And I think for the rest of my amateur career, I only lost 12 other fights for the next 14 years.
Yeah, I looked up your amateur career, and you were 128 and 14.
Yeah, 128 wins, 14 losses. Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay.
These tournaments, those fights add up in the amateurs really quick.
So how does the amateurs work? I mean, like with the rounds and things like that, like the turnaround?
Well, it's less rounds. You have 3, when I was fighting, it was 3 2-minute rounds. And then once you turn open, it was 4 2-minute rounds. So it's changed now. Now it's 3 3-minute rounds for the open class and 3 2-minute rounds if you're not open. But back then, I guess they were trying to get everybody used to fighting more rounds because once you turn pro, there was no more 3-round fights. Everything started at 4 rounds. So.
Okay, and how often are you fighting in the amateurs? Back to back?
Yeah, in the tournaments it's back to back. Some like when I fought the Olympic qualifiers, that was 7 days of fighting back to back, and it's about 38 teams there. You know, like New York State and California, like both of those are big states. They have 2 teams, so it's it's a lot of fighting, and it's single elimination. So to make it to that 6th or 7th day and actually get crowned champion, oh my God, it's a lot of fights. So we didn't make the Olympic team. You know, I lost to Sean Porter, ironically enough, in the Olympic qualifiers, and he became the Olympic alternate for the 2018. So there was, you know, really no hope after losing to him in the finals of the qualifiers to become, you know, an Olympic hopeful. So I just said, hey, I've 142 amateur fights. You know, I fight more like a pro anyway. There's no need for me to stick around the amateurs any longer, so we turned pro. And the beginning of my career was real grassroots. You know, we sold tickets out of my book bag, you know, made appearances, you know, at schools and at home, and, you know, at different places at home to sell tickets and get the tickets off the ground to be able to make my purse, because that was the trade-off, you know, whatever you want to make in this fight, or, you know, there was something that was agreed upon. I couldn't just say any wild number, but that was the amount of tickets I've had to sell. So I like to say that I propelled a big portion of my career, you know, just grassroots and by myself. And I had the luxury to be able to do that and make it work simply because I do have a fan base at home, and I'm, you know, being very grassroots. I'm connected to a lot of people, and I had a R&B group. I know you look at me as a fighter and say you were in an R&B group, but yeah, we had an R&B group together, and we had a big fan base, you know, off of that. So that transitioned into a bigger boxing fan base. And I was able to like really propel my career. You know, my first 10 fights were at home.
And you turned pro like a hurricane, man. You went first 10 fights, 10-0.
Yep. 10-0.
4 knockouts.
4 knockouts. Yeah.
Hey, man. Then you came to Darnell Boone, which was your 11th pro fight, and that was your first loss that you suffered.
Personal loss, yeah. Split decision. It was devastating. You know, a lot of things happened around that time. With I experienced, you know, like true, you know, pain and heartbreak on a level to where I had to man up, and you know, I ended up moving back home. You know, the team I was with at that time, I guess, you know, I don't want to say anything bad about anyone, but at that point in time, it just felt like, you know, I guess, you know, one loss dictated whether we could be together or not. So I've since talked to them and made amends, and, you know, it was just, you know, I guess, you know, you grow, you mature. I don't know whether it's maturity or divine intervention or whatever. But in between those times, you know, I assembled a new team, which included my wife. I'm very close to my wife, and a good friend of mine named TJ, and we took his garage and turned it into a gym. And that's where brick by brick really became a way of life. You know, went back to selling tickets out of my book bag. That never really stopped, you know, my first 15, 16 fights, that never really stopped. We trained out of a garage. We took a heavy bag, a tire, and a double end bag. And it was like a sweat box. No sparring, no ring. And we fought 5 times out of that garage and won. 3 by knockout. A good friend of mine, my big brother, my strength and conditioning coach. I'm wearing his brand right now. Easy work. Lee Davis, you know, me, him, and TJ, we got in that garage and we just went to work. And that propelled me to a few more wins, and then ultimately the Boxcino.
Now, seeing the huge influence and impact that Floyd Money Mayweather had on the sport of boxing, I mean, do you feel as though there's like a pressure to stay undefeated? And also, do you feel as though that is something that, I guess, keeps fighters from fighting other fighters, like when the fight should happen?
The O makes you, it puts you in a position to make more money, to be more acceptable to the crowd. So yes, you know, being an undefeated fighter, you know what I mean, put a lot of pressure on fighters to, you know, make certain moves that aren't fighter-like to protect their donut or to protect their O, as they speak. And I mean, that's just the way the game is ran. I think it's slowly fizzling out of that. I think people are starting to embrace their defeats and starting to understand that it makes them, it also plays a part in their greatness.
Yeah, so after that loss, you went on to win your next 9 fights, right? And then that took you to the 2014 Boxcino Middleweight Tournament, and you won that.
Yeah.
You won that bad boy, the whole thing. Talk about that fight though, Brandon Adams, and winning that whole, because that was like your first, that was the WBO, NA.
The NABO, WBO, the NABA, WBA, and then the Boxcino belt. Yeah. It was a great moment. My grandfather, who had raised me to be a fighter and trained me all these years, you know, he had passed away 8 months before that. It was one of those things where I just, in life, I was like, well, you know, I've dealt with losing my grandfather and I'm still here, so I'm just gonna leap. I just started leaping. I was like, I'm not gonna be scared of anything else anymore. And I just started leaping. I leaped into that Boxcino tournament and I had an answer for everything, because when the tournament started, Willie Monroe wasn't the favorite. And you know, when I look back at these opponents, I wonder why I wasn't the favorite, because I know me. But I'm like, you know, every fight you're not gonna win. This guy's too strong. He's not. Even Teddy Atlas, to this day, I just wonder why Teddy Atlas gave me so much garbage during the tournament. Like, he's not, he talked about everything I wasn't. Barely talked about what I was, but talked about everything I wasn't. And it was just one of those gratifying moments, man. And the fight with Brandon Adams was, that sealed the deal, obviously, but I think my most gratifying fight was the one before Brandon Adams, which was the Kopalenko fight.
I saw that fight as well.
Right.
You called, I mean, I saw he caught you with an uppercut. And
Yeah,
you ate
knock,
it though.
yeah,
You ate it though.
yeah. Knocked my mouthpiece about 15 feet across. Yeah. That fight was See, what had happened was, gotta say that. You gotta say that. He had been knocking everybody out, so he was like 23-0, like 13 knockouts, and everybody was talking about his power. And he had just knocked out Cereso Fort. And I wasn't too impressed, nothing against Cereso Fort, but I had already beat Cereso in the amateurs when we were kids, so I wasn't like, everyone was like, oh, you saw how he knocked him out? I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I did see some of the guys that he knocked out, and I was like, okay, he got power. So I went and bought this mouthpiece that had like the thicker shock absorbent in the back, because it helps you create that space, help you. And it was just like a safety precaution. Like, you know, I have a chin, but I'm not gonna go in there and try to prove that with the wrong equipment. You know what I mean? We're gonna try to make sure we're A1 across the board. And that mouthpiece was just, it protruded so much because it was, you know, it was thick. So when he knocked the mouthpiece out the second time, and I came back to the corner, and you know, my coach was like, you know, you could take his best punch. I was like, give me my other mouthpiece, because I can't keep this one in. So that's a long story short to tell you why that mouthpiece got knocked out 2 times. But yeah, that was my most gratifying fight, simply because I felt like Andre Ward when he fought Mikhail Kessler. When he fought Mikhail Kessler, and you know, Andre Ward was supposed to be knocked out by what, the 4th or 5th round. And I was one of the few people who was on Twitter like, nah, Andre Ward gonna win this whole tournament. He gonna win the whole Super 6. So when I fought this Russian kid and he was supposed to knock me out, I did everything Andre Ward did. I wore red, white, and blue. You know what I mean? I just got into that mind frame. And I came in there and like just took him out. So I was like, not took him out, but like I dominated the fight in a real, you know, smooth and crafty way. You know, it was to my liking. So that was my favorite fight of the tournament. Brandon Adams, we became good friends, so there was a part of me that wasn't cool with having to fight a friend. You know what I mean? Because we became real good friends over the course of that tournament. And we still talk to this day. Still good friends, yeah. You know.
I see you guys had a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah.
I remember, like, after the fight was over, I see he held your son, you held your son and everything in the ring.
And
a lot of love.
The reason why I passed my son off to him is because his wife was, she was like due any day. And I knew that had to be pressure on him coming into that fight. And I just told him, I said, I let him hold my son. I said, if you need anything, you know, let me know. Being a father is different. You know what I mean? It's a gratifying job, but it's like no other. Now he's getting ready to walk into his first time being a father. So I'm like, look, hold my son and just know that none of this matters. Win, lose, or draw. There's gonna be one day people are gonna talk about this, but there'll be one day where this is just a thought and a win. Your son is more important. And, you know, I like to share this moment with you and my son because it's a big moment in both of our careers, big moment in both of our lives. Both of us were the underdogs and said we couldn't win, and then we were both in the finals. So that just shows you how God works, and I just wanted him to, at that moment, you know, that was his first defeat, and I know how I felt after my first defeat. So I'm like, look, if I can pass anything on to you, bro, you got a baby coming in the world, life goes on, you're gonna be a champion, and just accept this moment, you know what I mean, and bask in the greatness of it.
Picked it back up.
Yeah, I wanted to share that moment with him rather than be like, I won, you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to share that moment with him, you know what I mean, in a more heartfelt way.
So after that, then you fought Vera.
Vera.
Yep. It's also one of your great friends now,
No,
right?
he's a good friend of mine, yeah. Quite a funny story after the fight was over, right before we got ready to do the post-fight press conference. Everybody's leaving, I'm taking pictures, autographs. Brian Vera's there. Me and him are taking pictures because people want to take pictures with both fighters. Then, like, a lot of people get out of there, and I'm just gotta stay busy doing something. Me and Brian Vera are talking and cleaning up the stands. We're both like get popcorn and drink cups and stuff. And people are like, yo, you guys just fought. Like, why are you helping clean up? And I was like, well, look, you know, when we were younger and we went to parties, my grandmother would make sure we stuck around to the end to help clean up because my grandma said, if somebody was nice enough to lend their house out for a party, the least you can do is help them clean up. So they came out to celebrate us trying to kill each other tonight. The least we can do is help them clean up. And we got a good laugh out of that, but we became good friends in that moment.
That's what's up.
Yeah. That was another good fight. That was a fight that said this guy's ready for a middleweight title. I personally wanted one or two more fights like that before, but you know, where I'm from, like I said, you don't get these opportunities every day, so you can't just skip up a big opportunity like that.
But that win, that would set you up for
Triple G.
Triple G.
Yeah.
Man. So Triple G at that time, the boogeyman.
Yeah.
So what was that like, man? You know, you get that call, you know, you're being considered for the fight. You know, what's going through your mind?
When I got the call, you know, at first I wasn't going to take it. I said, you know, let's stick to our guns and try to get maybe another guy like Brian Vera. But yeah, and then the money changed and we were able to finagle some things and get some, and I said, you know what, where I'm from, you know, I've done good in this Boxcino thing and I've made a name for myself, but from where I'm from and the promoter I was signed to at the time, I'm like, these opportunities don't come along every day. So I talked with my wife, we prayed about it. They added a little bit more money to the pot. I was working with an experienced trainer named Tony Morgan. And, you know, he told me you should get at least, you know, a certain amount, this much more. And we pushed for it and pushed for it. And I'm not going to say we got what we wanted. I'm not going to say we didn't get what we wanted. But it was enough to say, all right, you know what, I'm willing to take this type of risk. And, yeah, with only 20 professional fights, 19-1, man, I was like, look, you know, nobody else fighting this guy. And you know, you can't turn down opportunities like this. They don't come every day. So I took the opportunity and went in there and gave them all.
And that was a world title fight. First world title.
First world title. Towards the end of round 3, all around 4 and then 5, I was just like, because Triple G is very cagey. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, he hits you like right on the hips. Or like that, all that old school stuff that like Joe Frazier did to Ali to stop him from moving, you know what I mean? And like by the time the 3rd round came, like I just couldn't feel my right leg. I couldn't feel it at all, you know. With the power that Triple G has, you know, you get hit in the right spot, you know what I mean? It could paralyze. He has that paralyzing power. That power that when he hits you with it, you just cringe. And he just, you know, breaks you down. And it got to the point where I said, if I can't use my legs, I just have to start fighting. And ironically enough, that's where I got my best work done at. Like, oh, this might work. But, you know, the 6th round came and, you know, I just, at that moment, I said, you know what, I've had enough. You know what I mean? I started looking at everything that led up to the fight and how everything was happening, and I just said, you know, this was never created for me to win. You know what I mean? No matter how, you know, honestly and purely I try to look at this was never created for me to win. And I just said, okay, I get it. You know, and you know, not to say anything bad, like it was like you know, rigged or anything. It wasn't rigged, but you know, a fighter can tell when I understand. I understand that this isn't my time. You know, and I had to, you know, make peace with that. And that's a big fight with the ego, because it's like, you prove that you deserve to be here, but right now is not the time.
So after that, you come back and you beat John Thompson.
John Thompson.
Right after that.
Decision, yeah.
Yep. And then after the John Thompson fight, that was Gabriel Rosado.
Gabe Rosado, yeah, Gabriel Rosado.
Yeah, I like Gabe, man.
Yeah.
Man from Creed.
Yeah, man.
Philly fighter.
You're the lion. Ironically enough, him and my son have the same name. I named my son before I knew he existed. I named my son after him. He's a very entertaining fighter. I have to give that to him. Even before I fought him, like whenever he fought on TV, I'm like, yo, this dude gonna fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's gonna be blood. It's gonna be swinging. He gonna get caught. He's gonna land a lot of punches. Like, he's an entertaining fighter.
Yeah.
You know, it was a total mismatch for him. Like, they can look in hindsight and see that now, but like, you know, had I been managing Gabe Rosado, I'd have said, you're not going nowhere near. I'm not about to do that to you. Like, simply because like his style is like tailor made for a counter puncher with great reflexes and likes to just be at home. Like, I was just at home that whole fight. Mm-hmm. It was nothing I couldn't do, because like, he gave me everything I need to work with, you know, the countering, the aggression, and he was actually, you know, not going up a lot slower than I anticipated. So I had to slow my mind down to like sort of like make sure I wasn't too far ahead of myself. But it was a fight that I took a lot of pride in, because I took it on a 3.5 week notice. So, you know, for a 12-round title fight, you're looking at least an 8-week camp. But I took it on 3.5 week notice, and I live in the gym. But on a 3.5 week notice, I felt, you know, 3 weeks of sparring and what I know was more than enough to beat Gabe Rosado. And it was gratifying that, because he was very, very mildly before the fight. I mean, he called me the B word so many times, and as a man, there's only so many times you could call me like another man the B word before it's like, yo, we might not make it to the fight. So I just had to keep saying God bless you. I just had to keep saying, like, if I put God in it, I can't be wrong. Like, I can't do nothing wrong. You can't say God bless you and then go do something stupid. So if I put God in it, I'll stay right until the night of the fight when I can put my hands on it.
He even pushed you at the weigh-in.
He pushed me at the weigh-in. But when he pushed me at the weigh-ins and he stepped back, his leg was shaky, like vigorously. And I said, that's nerves, he's scared.
I saw a YouTube video of that, because they put a close-up on that.
Yeah.
He was really shaking.
His leg was shaking. You could tell he was nervous. And I kind of knew he was going to do that. Me and my team said he'll probably get aggressive at the weigh-in, because he was trained by Fernando Vargas, and Fernando Vargas used to do that. So you got Bully Jr. being trained by Bully Sr. I already know what you guys are going to pull. That doesn't shake me up.
And now you were supposed to get the Canelo fight with that win, right?
I think, you know, I don't want to like make, you know, anyone sound bad or make myself sound like I'm just this superhero or something, but I call it arrogance, because they gave me the fight on a 3.5 week notice, and they were so sure that Gabe Rosado would beat me that they arrogantly laid Canelo a possible fight with, no, not a possible fight, a definite fight with Canelo in December out there on the line, because they was like, there's no way Willie Monroe's beating him. And not on a 3.5 week notice, he's not beating Gabe Rosado. They felt he did better against Triple G. They felt he had been in better fights. He was on his two-fight win streak with Fernando Vargas. He was looking like he was about to be champion. And, you know, I had one win since the Triple G fight, and they just felt like he can't do it. And if we get him on a 3.5 week notice, they felt arrogant enough to be able to hang such a big, you know, present out there on the line. I won't want to say a piece of meat because I'm vegetarian, but, you know, to hang something, you know, delectable on the line and say, oh, he's going to be so worried about that he's going to look past this whole 3 weeks thing and Gabe Rosado will win. And then Gabe Rosado signed the Golden Boy, so it's Canelo, in-house money, we don't have to pay anybody else. This works. Well, Willie Monroe had different plans. And I'm not a prima donna who sits around and say, well, when they call me and give me an 8 week notice, then I'll fight. 2-3 days after a fight, I'm back in the gym. You know, my coaches have to tell me, look, just go home and eat something, maybe have a couple milkshakes or something. And I'm like, nah, they'll never catch me sleeping. You know, I mean, I'm an insomniac. They'll never catch me sleeping. And you know, I was just so proud because in that moment, I proved that brick by brick is, you know, a definitive theory of mine that works. You know, just keep building. Thanks to my strength and conditioning coach, Easy, you know, lucky with Easy again, man. He got in my behind because maybe 4 weeks before that, I did sort of like falter and just like, man, you know what? We're not gonna have a fight because I was originally supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders. And Billy Joe Saunders was like, I'm not coming to America. So I was like, man, ain't gonna be no fight. And he called me, he was like, look, bro, I done changed my whole schedule around for you to get this work in. We got new work, we stay ready. You know what I mean? I don't care if there isn't a fight coming up. That's not what we promised to do. And I said, you right. And whether I liked it or not, I put my stuff on, got out there at that track and met him 3 times a week like I was supposed to. And by golly, 5 weeks later, they showed up with a 3.5 week notice. I said, 5 weeks, 3. We had an 8.5 week camp. Sounds like a title fight camp to me. You know, let's go win this belt, and we did. You know, so I'm blessed to have some great people around me. And you know, really speaking and believing that moniker draws more like-minded people around me to make sure I stay, you know, steadfast on that belief.
Now, the Rosado fight, that was a big fight because that was on the Canelo undercard when he fought Liam Smith.
Yeah, it was a co-feature.
And yeah, co-feature, co-main event, and now that was in the AT&T Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah.
What was that like, man?
That was huge. They say 58,000 people.
58,000?
Biggest crowd I ever fought in front of. One of my idols, Andre Ward, showed up. He prayed with us in my hotel room. Then he was ringside for the fight. And I'm just like, yo, it don't get no better than this. It doesn't. And, you know, my brother, the whole team, we were all, you know, dressed to the T. Like, it just, that was a moment where if, you know, God came in and said, I'm going to give you a perfect moment, that was it. And, I mean, we were all, like, the whole team was there. My wife, my kids were there. My dad was there. It was just big. You know, I had my own little group against, you know, a lot of people. They weren't there rooting for Willie Monroe, I'll say that much. You know, it was cool.
Now talk about that incident that happened at the weigh-in with the Billy Joe Saunders fight, because his son, like...
Probably the most bizarre and strange thing I've been through. I punched in the private area and kicked very hard.